You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Off we go on a Friday morning. Great to be on with you as we take you till the middle. By the way, the appearance with Eitan and Harry yesterday on the show got a lot of laughs on Twitter. I tweeted out the clip of it, Ron. It was pretty funny seeing the reaction from the middle listeners interacting with our show's listeners after the clip from yesterday with Harry Mays calling Eitan Shander a segment killer. So check that out on my Twitter at Jake Asman if you missed it live. I wanted to start this morning with some football, and I'm reading Eric Edholm's piece on Yahoo Sports, and Eric does a great job covering the NFL and the NFL draft, and he talks about when all 5 of the first-round quarterbacks could actually see the field. Now, a couple of these are obvious. Trevor Lawrence, he was starting week 1 for whichever team was drafting him about 3 years ago. So that's been obvious. Trevor Lawrence will start week 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's obvious. Duh. But there's 4 other quarterbacks that were drafted in that first round where there's an unknown on when they could start. I think the second one is still obvious too. Zach Wilson of the Jets is starting week 1 as well. He will go up against Sam Darnold. Now you could say, well, Jake, Robert Saleh has not said that yet. He's not going to say that in the month of May. All right, Zach Wilson's going to have to technically earn the job. He's going to have to win the job. But I've seen this with Jets history. When they draft a guy that high, they play week 1. Sanchez started week 1. Darnold started week 1. And ultimately, you look at the Jets depth chart right now, Mike White or James Morgan, they're not beating out Zach Wilson to be the week 1 starting quarterback. Even if the Jets were to sign a veteran, I don't think for a second that would happen. So Wilson's going to play week 1, assuming he knows the offense and assuming he's healthy. And that's how it should be. Oh, by the way, get this kid all the experience possible. You're not expected to be a great team this year. So play Zach Wilson right away. I have no issue with that, from the Jets' perspective. The idea that sitting Zach Wilson will allow him to be better is nonsense. Just like it's like, oh, well, Mahomes sat. If Mahomes played as a rookie, he would have been great. Maybe he wouldn't have been the MVP of the league like he was in his second year in the league, first full year starting. But these guys ultimately, they need the experience. They got to play. So Trevor Lawrence, week 1. Zach Wilson, week 1. The interesting case study here is Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. Because in each of those cases, there's a somewhat accomplished veteran in front of them. You look at Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. Is he a, Pro Bowl quarterback? Is he, a top 10 quarterback? I don't believe so. But he's a very capable player. You don't go to the Super Bowl if you're not at least decent. And I get it. Garoppolo was more of a passenger on those teams. But, man, Garoppolo, his issue has been health, not performance. When he's on the field, the team plays well and they win. But in Eric Edholm's story here, he has Trey Lance starting week 1 for the Niners. And a lot of people freaked out. How could you do that? They have Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey Lance has played 17 career games. I get all that too. But you know what? I agree with Eric Edholm. Trey Lance is playing week 1 for the 49ers because I think what ultimately happens is that Jimmy G gets traded over the summer. There's going to be a team that's going to need a quarterback, whether their quarterback gets injured, whether it's like an Aaron Rodgers situation and he's so disgruntled, Green Bay maybe moves on. Something will happen where Trey Lance has to see the field. So if it's not week 1, I think it could be pretty early. Because the other factor with Garoppolo, as I mentioned, is health. So even if Jimmy G's on the field, all of a sudden, we're one injury away from Lance coming into the game and being the guy. And if he plays well when he gets the opportunity, just like Justin Herbert did when he found out 5 minutes before week 2, he was coming in, they're not going to go back to Jimmy G. Kyle Shanahan strikes me as the coach that's going to scheme around whatever weakness Lance might have right away. Prove how smart he is. It's like if you open the can of, if you open the toothpaste bottle, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I feel like once the Niners make a move to Trey Lance and he sees the field, it's going to be tough for them not to stick with him. I think ultimately what we're going to see with Trey Lance is that he's going to play sooner than a lot of people think. Maybe it's not week 1. Maybe Eric Edholm is jumping the shark a bit, think he's going to play week 1. But you know what? I don't think it's crazy at all. Jimmy G could be the Sam Bradford of this year's training camp. The quarterback that gets hurt over the summer, all of a sudden, Jimmy G gets traded. The Niners take advantage of a desperate team, and in comes Trey Lance, if he proves he's ready. But I don't think just because Lance only played 17 games, or excuse me, Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, and then Sam Bradford got dealt. That could happen this summer with Garoppolo. So watch out for that. After Lance, we go to the 4th quarterback taken at pick 11 by the Bears, Justin Fields. Eric has Fields playing week 4. This would not be shocking by any stretch of the imagination. I even think Justin Fields could win the job. If he proves that he's the guy over the summer, if he plays well in the preseason, the pressure that will be on the Bears to play him will be a lot. Are Nagy and Pace really going to be able to not give in to the fan base? I don't know. I don't know if I believe that at all. So ultimately, you look at the Bears depth chart and they paid Andy Dalton $10 million. You would think they'd want to put him out there for at least a game, right? I mean, you don't want to just burn $10 million. So I will say we see Justin Fields either week 3 or week 4. In Eric's article, he has Fields making his first start week 4 of the season against the Lions. Eric thinks Dalton and the Bears will lose at the Rams. That's opening night. They'll beat the Bengals at home in week 2 and then get beat by the Browns on the road in week 3. Setting the stage for Fields in week 4 to then become the guy. That's not crazy at all. In fact, I can see the scenario where if Dalton just stinks in week 1, they go to him in week 2 against the Bengals. That's a winnable game at home. I think if you're going to start Fields, you want his first start to be at home, ideally. So I will predict week 2 for Fields. I don't think Andy Dalton has a long leash by any means. The fan base will be howling if Dalton goes out there. Primetime game, oh, by the way. Yes, that's the Sunday night game. Bears and Rams. And if he struggles. So Eric is predicting week 4 for Justin Fields. I'm going week 2. I think Dalton plays poorly on Sunday Night Football. The Bears fan base gets irate, and they go to Fields week 2 against the Bengals. Could be similar to what we saw here in Houston a number of years ago when Deshaun Watson rode the bench for a half and then came in for the Houston Texans. I don't know if they'll go to Fields at halftime of week 1, but man, Bears fans, rightfully so, are going to be very impatient. So I can see Justin Fields playing week 2. I'll go 2 weeks earlier than what Eric has in his story on Yahoo. And then finally, this to me is the most fascinating one because we know how stubborn Bill Belichick can be. Mac Jones, 15th overall. There's only been 2 rookie quarterbacks to ever start a game for Bill Belichick as a head coach. One of them was Jacoby Brissett. And Brissett start because Tom Brady was suspended, and then Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt in week 2 that year in 2016. You look at Mac Jones, and barring Cam Newton getting injured, I don't think we see Mac Jones for a while here. I think, in fact, he's the last quarterback we see play because I think Belichick is so stubborn and so insistent on trying to be right on Cam Newton that I don't think we see Jones till maybe after the Patriots bye week later in the season. Eric has week 11 for Mac Jones. It obviously depends on the Patriots record. But man, I just don't think Cam Newton can play. But we saw it last year. Cam couldn't play at all towards the second half of the year, and Bill refused to play Stidham. Refused to put anyone in. I mean, it looked obvious to all of us that Cam looked like a shot player, but it didn't matter for Bill. He kept going to him. I think a lot of this depends on how Mac Jones looks over the summer. How close do they think he's ready? But Bill is stubborn, man. He's really stubborn. Who knows if he will go to Mac Jones when it's obvious probably the most that he should. So I think out of all the quarterbacks here, Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Fields, Jones is the one that we probably see last. Unless Cam gets hurt. That obviously could change a lot. But Cam was healthy last year. I know he suffered COVID, but, physically wise, he didn't suffer any grueling injury. I mean, if Bill Belichick wants to go to the playoffs, I would recommend going to Mac Jones as soon as possible because I don't think Cam Newton can play anymore. Well, Jake, you didn't have great weapons last year. There were like throws where guys were open and he was throwing them at dudes' feet. Take out Cam Newton's 2 games against the Jets and look at his stats. They're brutal. He only played well against a garbage Jets team coached by Adam Gase. So I see a lot going on here. But ultimately, I could see 3 of these rookies starting week 1. Lawrence, Wilson, and yes, I agree with Eric at home, Trey Lance. Justin Fields, I could see him getting in week 2. Mac Jones is the wild card here because Bill is stubborn and he has an affinity for Cam Newton. So when do we see these rookie quarterbacks? What's your best guess? I think 2 are obvious. Lawrence and Wilson play week 1, and then the next 3, there's definitely a debate on when each of those guys can make their season debut. 800-224-2004 is the number if you want to get involved and weigh in. Plenty still to do this morning. Up next, Tom Brady Sr. called into a Boston radio show and had a big prediction for the Bucs and Pats matchup in week 4 of the NFL season. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stay tuned. Jake Asman with you here on a Friday morning. This is the Jake Asman Show. You're listening to Sports Map Radio.
Wake up call.
Who is the